And Kevin, I'm going to go ahead and give you the presenter privileges so you can pull up your presentation.
Okay. I am now the presenter. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, you sound great.
Okay, great. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. My name is Kevin Brookhauser. I'm a humanities teacher at York School in Monterey, and that's a small independent school on the coast here. And
actually, Kevin, we don't see your slides yet. Did you share the application or your desktop?
Oh, well, let me do that. Let's see. And that's in the application desktop. Can you see my desktop now?
Yes. Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. And I'm also a Google certified teacher, and I'm a Google Apps for EDU certified trainer. And today's topic is Google Docs for English classes. I teach all the 10th grade English students here at York, and I use Google Docs extensively. I use many of the different app suites. Today we're going to talk specifically about Google Docs for English classes. And I'm going to be working under the assumption that you have some familiarity with Google Docs in general. There are other webinars and lots of information online about how to about Google Docs for beginners. So you can definitely find a lot of those resources. So let me quickly go over the agenda for the day. Hopefully we'll get through these topics. I'm going to speak in broad terms about the advantages of Google Docs in the English classroom versus other digital word processing tools or other tools that are available. And then I'm going to talk about composing and formatting papers using the Modern Language Association style. I know that that's important to a lot of us English teachers. And we're going to look at how we can do peer editing using Google Docs, how students can work together and edit their documents. And I'll show you how to create a shared collection, which is Google Forms of folders into which students can turn in their essays. If we have time, we'll get into how to create an essay rubric to save you all time grading papers. I know that that's one of the challenges for English teachers is getting through grading all the papers that we have. And then I'll show you how students can collaboratively create a vocabulary list using Google Docs spreadsheets, and then also creating a self-grading vocabulary quiz using Google Forms and Flubaroo. That's an ambitious agenda, and I hope we can get through it. Now, I first want to say, if we talk about Google Docs in general, you know, what makes Google Docs, what I think makes Google Docs so great, and what Google Docs' strong suit is the collaborative functionality and how people can work together on a document. And so in that spirit, I didn't want to just do this presentation by myself, so I invited a couple of my students to join me, and they're here in this office, and they have their laptops out, and they have their Google Docs open, and they'll demonstrate some of the sharing capabilities. Katie and Nils, say hi to the audience. Hello. Okay, so here they are, and we're going to talk about Google Docs in general. So if you're like me, I started teaching English about 12 years ago, and I started having my students turn in papers the traditional way, the way I turned in my papers, printing them out and turning them in drafts, and then maybe I'd turn in a first draft and give it to my teacher, and the teacher would grade that, and then maybe I'd write a second draft or maybe a third draft, and drafts were done in these sort of with lots of stacks of paper, and there were a fixed number of drafts. And then the digital era came along, and we started writing our papers in word processors, and instead of turning them in paper, we might email our teachers or professors essays. And the professor, if they were forward teachers, they might grade that essay actually in that document using the word processor and putting in comments, and then they could email me back my paper, or I could email, if I were doing this with my students, I would email them back their paper, and they could do a subsequent draft and make those changes and then email those changes back to me. And what happens there is you end up getting multiple versions of these drafts, and sometimes they're kind of hard to keep track of. But even when we're doing that sort of process through email, it's still a fixed number of drafts. And what Google Docs does instead, the dramatic shift from that model, is that instead of turning in drafts of a paper or of an essay, what you do is you invite others to have access to that document, so you can work with your students the entire time that they're working on that essay, instead of having just a fixed number of drafts. So you can actually, by using Google Docs, you can actually teach writing as a process, and instead of a step process, it's actually more of a flow process. So let's go over to Google Docs. What I have open right now is a Google document, and this is where I'm going to put any resources that we come up with. And like Dana said, I'm going to send this over to you. They aren't slides, but it's just a page. So you should be familiar that this is the Google Docs list, and you'll see that there are some changes. If you have the new look, you'll see that they've kind of cleaned up the design a little bit. I like it a lot. So I'm going to bring up an essay that my student Nils wrote, and he shared that with me, so now I have access to it. So Nils, do you want to also bring up that essay so we can kind of get a idea of what's happening there? Nils, are you there? Let's see here. Let me see here. Comments. I don't see you on this one. Are you on the same one? Let me double check here. So I don't see him in this, so I think he's in a different copy. So what I'm going to do is I want to invite him, just like he would invite me to it. I think we're working on a couple different versions. So I'm going to click File and Share, and it shows that Nils Doe is the owner here. There you are. Katie's there. Hey, Katie. We see Katie there. So we can work with this. So on the right, I can see who else is viewing the document. Nils, if you can work with Katie and try to figure out if you're on a different document. Yeah, there he is. Nils is here. So now we see that there are 3 people viewing this document at the same time. And over here is an orange cursor. And on the right, I see that Nils' name is here, and his color associated with him is orange, and you can see that his cursor is orange. And Katie, do you want to, why don't you highlight the title of the essay? Can you do that? And there you can see that Katie's highlighting the title. So if Nils is working on this essay and he shared it with me, what I can do in the middle while he's writing it, I can kind of go through and check out his progress. And so let's say I really like the title. I think that's a fantastic title. So Katie, actually, if you unhighlight that, I'm going to highlight it, and I'm going to insert a comment that I really like his title, The Tyrant's Flaw in Macbeth. So there's a way to insert a comment. The traditional way is just go on Insert, and then scroll down to Comment. But I want to show you the keyboard shortcut, because if you're going to be using this Google Docs to help your students with their writing, and you're going to make comments, you're going to want to do this really fast, because if you're going to do it a lot, it's going to save you a ton of time. So the trick here is highlight it, and then Option, Command, M, and it automatically brings up a comment that's associated with that title. And for Windows users, I think that's Control or Alt Command, but all you have to do is check on the Insert menu. You'll see the instructions for what that shortcut is. Learn that shortcut. It'll save you a ton of time. Love the title. Good work. And I'm going to click the comment. And what Nils will immediately see that title, or that comment, and he can take a look at it, and eventually once he's got it, he can click Resolve so that it'll go away. So I'm going to see here where it says, in Shakespeare's Macbeth, Macbeth's fatal flaw was obtaining power through fear and violence. That's a good sentence, but it's a little awkward that we have Macbeth and Macbeth right next to each other. So I'm going to go Option Command M, insert a comment. Good sentence, but the repeated Macbeths are a little awkward. So Mills can see the sentence, and then he can revise this. And so, Mills, why don't you change, you have any thoughts on how to change that sentence to avoid that awkward construction?
Change it to his or?
It would be his, but then that would be that might be a vague pronoun. So you could, is there another way you could name Macbeth? You could call him the protagonist. You want to try that?
Sure.
And maybe that's going to feel a little clumsy for now, but let's just do that for now, and then we can come back and look at it later. So the protagonist. So you can see that he can immediately make those changes. All right, and then so I saw that, and I'm going to click on this comment, and I think that that's better. It's almost resolved, but actually I want him to make sure that that the is lowercase. I'm going to reply. Mills is going to see that and fix it. All right, and then I'm going to click resolve. Now, one thing that I've noticed that there's a trend in teaching writing is that writing now it's in the real world, people don't often just write documents all by themselves, or even just with their supervisor. Nowadays, a lot of people are collaborating on documents. So we can see that we've got Katie here as well as someone who's also able to edit this document and to help Mills with this document. And Katie can share her version of this with Mills, and they can work together on this. So one other way that you can collaborate on a document instead of the comment feature is this chat window over here. So Katie, what I'd like you to do is take a look at his citations, where he's citing actual quotations from the play. And you see how he uses commas in between the scenes? Was that what you do?
I put Act C in line.
You put Act C in line. But for Modern Language Association, specifically asks us to just put periods in between the two. So why don't you chat to Mills and mention that so the audience here can see that kind of in action. So instead of, don't do a comment. In that, do you have that chat window?
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Oh, now she's got it. So we got Katie taking a look. She highlighted it, and then they're actually going to have a chat conversation. And what that does is it creates a conversation in real time. And so change the commas in your citations, periods. So let's take a look at formatting in this document. You can see that you can double space the way the MLA requires. You can do all of this. This looks pretty good. And then there's also page numbers, which I don't believe a year ago or so, I don't believe that you could do the pagination the way the MLA requires. But now you can, and Mills figured out how to do that himself. So it's under Insert, right? And then Page Number, and then top of the page. And what that does is it creates an automatic page. So if you can see that this one is highlighted in gray, that means that's an automatic page number generator. And then if he just types his name, Franco, and then a space, and then it automatically generates that down below. So good job, Mills, for figuring that out. And I think that is pretty much it. I think you can actually produce MLA-style documents using this. I don't think that there's any other thing that limits this. You can just print these or export it as a PDF, or just turn it in online. Okay, so that covers a lot of the collaborative functions of this. Oh, I do want to mention that all of the changes that are done to this document are tracked. And so if you go to File and see Revision History, you can go back to earlier versions of the document, and it highlights what changes were made. So you can see this change that we just made. And you can go back all the way to the beginning of the document, all the way back to where the first sentence was written. And what I like about this as an English teacher is after you've completed a document, you can see that if it was written well, you will see that the document was created not by first sentence, second sentence, third sentence, and then that you just keep adding sentences. We know as English teachers that's not how writing really is. The way writing works is you first create an outline, and then you fill in that outline. Maybe you write the introduction last, and then you write the conclusion. You do those towards the end. That's usually how I recommend it. And you'll see that paragraphs are deleted and sentences are changed, and that editing is a long process, and that the history of that paper changes a lot. And with Google Docs, you can actually watch that happen, which I think is incredibly, it's not just interesting, but it's also instructive in how writing actually works, or how good writing should work. Okay, so those are the different changes, and you can click here to see even more detailed changes, so you get a richer history of how that document turned into the way it was. Okay, so let's move on. Go back to the agenda. So we covered Google Docs and the MLA style, peer editing. Now let's talk about creating a shared collection into which students can turn in their essays. So I'm going to go to my Docs list, and this is where it lists all the documents. And I'm in the collection that's called Google Docs for English Teachers, and this shows all of the different docs that we're going to be using for this. So in the Create button, you can scroll down to create a collection. Now, a collection is kind of like folders, so I'm going to create, let's say I have an assignment. Let's make a sonnet assignment. Maybe I'll assign my students to write a sonnet. So that's a collection. And the reason they're called collections instead of folders is, well, we English teachers, we take metaphors pretty seriously. And the folder metaphor doesn't quite work, because in a folder, you can if you put a document in one folder, it's impossible to put that document into another folder. But with collections, you can put one document into multiple collections. So it might make more sense to think of them as like tags, or just think of them as collections. So you could create a collection of the best papers some of the best papers that you've had. And those papers may actually live in another collection, like in your Macbeth Essays collection, but you also want to put them in the Best Papers collection so that you can share those with other students to use as models. So that's how you can organize your docs list. But another cool feature about collections is that you can actually share the collections. So I'm going to right-click on that collection, and I'm going to click Share. And while we're doing this, Mills and Katie, I'm not going to make you write a sonnet, but create a document and write maybe the first line of a sonnet. It doesn't even have to be an iambic pentameter, but what I want to demonstrate is turning in a document into this collection. So I'm going to click Share, and I'm going to give Mills and Katie access to this document. And I'm going to click Can Edit, and then I'm going to click Share and Save. So I'm going to click Done. And is this shared? I'm going to refresh this. Double check. Oh yeah, it took a little while, but see this little people person that showed up in the folder? That's just a visual cue that says that this folder is shared with other people. And that's actually really important, because as soon as you put any document in a shared folder, that document attains the sharing feature of that folder. So even if I created a private document, as soon as I put it into a shared folder, that document's privacy settings are applied, or the shared folders sharing settings are applied to that document. So the collection takes over. So I've created that. Did you guys receive an invitation to that folder? Okay, so they did, and they're creating a little document. And what they're going to do is, I'm going to create a little document too. I'm going to pretend I'm one of the students. Document and sonnet. Shall I compare D to a foggy day? And I can keep writing my sonnet, but let's just pretend that we did this. So I'm going to call this Kevin's Bad Sonnet. Now I've created that, and I look up here and it says all changes have been saved, so I can safely close that tab and go back to my list, and that should show up if I refresh my browser. And there's Kevin's Bad Sonnet. And so what I want to do, and this is what I'm having my students do, is turn in, quote unquote, turn in their document by just dragging that document into the shared collection called Shakespeare's Sonnets. And here we go. I already got 2 sonnets, and there's Mill's and Katie's is coming. So this is a great way to have your students turn in various essays, and it keeps everything organized. Let me tell you a little tip, though. You should be quite consistent in your naming conventions. And the reason to do that is it helps organize, and as you're going through, you can have it orderly. So what I have my students do is I have them name all of their essays and everything by, they first put in their section number, and then underscore, and then their last name and their first name, and or their last name, first initial, underscore, and then the name of the assignment. And that way, if I sort by title, it'll sort them all automatically by section number for when I'm grading. So that's a little trick that I found that has saved me a ton of time. Okay, so that's sharing and creating a sort of a Dropbox. So let's go back to the agenda. And next thing I want to talk about is creating a rubric with Google Forms. So I love Google Forms. I use them all the time. It's a great way to collect data from others. But one thing about Google Forms that a lot of people don't think about is that it's a great way to collect data for yourself. And so I create forms all the time for myself. I have, if you see up here, I've got a little shortcut. I've got a form, simple form that I created for myself, and it's called, let's see if this works. Kevin's Teaching Journal. And it's a form that's just one entry.
Kevin, somebody just had a question about your shared folders, about are there any privacy issues? Can't all the students see all the other student papers in a shared folder? Or how are you setting up the privacy settings?
You know, the Google Teacher Academy that I attended a year and a half ago has completely transformed the way I think about these kinds of things. Yeah, you're absolutely right. When you set up a folder in that way, they can see each other's papers. But I'm getting to the place where I think that that's a great advantage. I do keep it locked down so that it's only my class can see each other's papers. But I'm starting to believe that we should be a little more open with the work that we're doing and have students helping each other. And, I would love to open this up as a conversation about the pros and cons, but I found that when my students, I think of it just like a presentation. Other students see the presentations in class, and I find that there's some positive peer pressure, that my students' presentations are good partially because they know that their peers are going to see it, and that they want to to create the best paper that they can. So I understand that as a concern, and it is a shift in the way I think about it. But so far, I haven't run into any significant problems with that, and I can see it actually being a positive. Was that the only question?
Yep, that's, well, one other one actually. Do you limit student sharing so they cannot share with others, just you? And so I think that's a question more about Google Apps for Education. So for Google Apps for Education, you can't actually control how many people share with their document with. It's really user-facing. So, Kevin, have you had any problems with that?
You mean with them sharing outside of our domain?
Or no, just sharing with people who are not you.
Oh, no, I haven't had any problems with that. I believe that sharing is generally a good thing. They do share with others, but I'm happy when they're doing that. I completely believe in writing as a collaborative process. Now, where does that cross the line into cheating? You know, if someone else is writing your paper. But what's interesting about this is all of because the entire history of the document is tracked, I can see who's making what changes. So if that's the concern, all I have to do is go back into the history of the document, and I can see who's doing what. And if a student is helping too much with an essay, I can go in and intervene in that way.
Great. And then there's another question just about sharing individual documents versus a collection. Those are, maybe you could speak to the benefits of that. I know one thing that I've heard from teachers is when you share individual docs with the teacher, it usually sends an email notification, while with collection, students can just drop in documents and they're shared with the teacher without getting all of those email notifications. And it also does help with organization. So do you have any other benefits you would share around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think those are two huge ones, and I'll just expand a little bit on the organization. So if they just shared the document with me, then that document would show up in my home screen, and I would have to manually organize it and put it in some collection. Whereas if I create a shared collection, and I can just think about that as an inbox or a Dropbox, where they're going to drag their essay into that collection, just visually, I can just look at that entire collection and see who's turned in their essay and who has not yet. So it's pretty cool. I haven't had any problems with it yet. Have you guys thought about any problems with sharing and collections, that sort of thing? I'm getting shaking heads. No, so far so good. All right.
Oh, actually, two last questions on that. One is just a question around plagiarism, and another is what if the topics are more personal in nature when you're sharing them in the collection?
Okay, as far as plagiarism goes, plagiarism is going to be an issue. I don't think that Google Docs brings forward any risks of plagiarism that any other form of turning in a paper would be. We've had plagiarism, as long as we've had writing, probably. If you mean by that, getting an essay off the web or buying it from someone else and just not using your own work, you can plagiarize in Google Docs. You can plagiarize in any other tool out there. But if you mean by plagiarism, like because of the sharing features and maybe another student is going too far into helping another student, and actually we have one student that's actually writing the paper of another student, then yeah, that's a problem. Again, that's a problem that can happen without Google Docs. What actually I think is what helps in Google Docs is that we can actually see who made what edits in any given paper. Now, yeah, it's possible that students could do a workaround, as they could in any other format if they had, if they were logging in with someone else's credentials. But as far as that goes, that's not a problem. And now that I've finished answering that question, I'm trying to remember what the other one was. Can you help me out, Dana?
It was about sharing if a student wrote an essay on a more personal topic and putting that in a folder where other people could view. Has that ever happened, or how would you imagine dealing with something like that?
I would not use a collection if I were collecting personal. I wouldn't use a shared collection. Dana, you may be able to speak on this, but I haven't figured out a way to have students submit something to a collection but not have access to other documents in that collection.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure about that. I do know there's a site script that somebody wrote that you can embed in a Google site that students can submit documents that end up going into a collection. But I'm not sure if students have access to that collection or how that works exactly. But there is something that exists if you do a search for sites assignment uploader script on Google. I'm sure that would come up. Okay, sorry for the interruptions, Kevin. Go ahead and move forward. I'll save some of the questions for later.
Yeah, no problem. I like the more interactive. That's fine. Interrupt at any time that you feel like you see a compelling question. But I would say, because if you were collecting personal essays and stuff that you didn't think was appropriate for other students to read, and I can definitely see where that would be an issue, I wouldn't use the shared collections. What I would do, though, again, is make sure I had really clear naming conventions, and that when students turn that in, that they make sure that they title their topic, their document with a unique word. Give your assignment a unique word, and have that word in the title of that document. So when they share those documents with you, all you have to do is go to your docs list here, and if you just type in that unique word, whatever that is, let's say it's, personal essay, put personal essay in the word, and if you search for personal essay, it will bring up all of the documents that have that word in it. So, and then you could also sort, and so that you could find all the personal essays, and then you could create your own collection and drag those documents into that collection. So that's how I would handle that. So back to the teaching journal. This is something that I try to do often. I've always been trying to be good about writing about my experience in teaching so that I can reflect on how it's going. But like many of us, I'm not great at keeping a paper journal around. I'll forget it, or I'm not sure where it is, and there's just a fair amount of friction into doing that. And then there are times when I've tried to do it by just keeping a document and just writing down, but that still requires signing in to Google Docs or whatever blog or whatever you're using. But what's cool about using Google Docs as a way to keep a simple teaching journal is I can bookmark this journal, and I don't even need to be logged into Google Docs to submit to it. I can just write something. We had a great discussion of separate keys today. Some students were still convinced that Finney has less than honest intentions. So I can submit that, and that automatically gets populated into a database of all of my notes that I'm having. And the cool thing is that they automatically get timestamped, so I know when I submitted those. So that's a quick little trick. So what I've done here is another form that I use, and I'm the only one who submits data to it. So I'm going to click down, and this is a little trick in the new Google Docs list to sort or to filter out. I know a lot of us end up getting a lot of docs in our documents list, and we want to find ways to find the documents we want. So I'm going to click on this little arrow, and that creates a way to filter out documents. And I know that I'm looking for a form. I'm going to click on that, and so it filters out everything except the forms. And I'm going to bring up this form that I created. I've called it the CHS Macbeth Essay Rubric Form. So it brings up the spreadsheet. So I want to go to the actual form that I showed you that I made. And so I named the form up here. And there are webinars, by the way, on using forms. There's an intro, and then there's an advanced form that I did with a colleague, Tim, last year. And so you can check that out on actually how I created this form. But I want to show you how I created this form specifically as an English teacher. So I always start with section number because that's how I grade. It's much more efficient because then I'm going to be able to sort by section number. And then I have the student's last name. And then I have four different grid-based questions. And grid questions are ones that you can have multiple sub-questions in each question. And I'll show you what that looks like in the editing window. So I have one grid under content, in the contents of the paper. And just so you know, I'm going to be using this form later as I'm reading through papers, and I'm going to be grading them using this form. So in the column label, I just have the columns listed 1 through 5. So each giving them a number. And it's important to give them a number because later you'll see that I'm actually using a math function or a formula to calculate the grades. So I have columns 1 through 5. 5 is going to be the best and 1 is the worst. And I just know that for myself. I don't need to define that because I'm the only one who's actually filling out this rubric. And then in the content rows, I have paper has a clear purpose and makes a point, uses specific details and examples, omits unimportant details, carefully thought through and demonstrates knowledge. And then row 5 is meets length requirements. So I make that a required question. And the reason I make it a required question is because I don't want to forget to submit any of these. And so then I can go, I did that with all of these, and from editing, style, order. And then at the end I created a paragraph text box for comments, and that's where I can make some final comments on the paper. So let me show you what the live form looks like. And what I do is I create a bookmark for this so I can come back to it, and I will just go over to the essay, read through it, maybe when it's the final draft when I'm actually going to be grading the essay. I can place inline comments like I showed you before, and then when I'm done grading it, I will go to the rubric, and I'll just type in the section number, last name, and then I'll just go right through here. Paper has a clear purpose, makes a point, uses some details, okay, good. And I just go in here and rate, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. All right, weak introduction. I'm going to just keep going over here, typing through. And this works great on a computer, but if you have a tablet, this is really cool too. You just have that tablet sitting next to you, and you just tap on the various grading criteria. And also you can use this not just for a rubric for writing, but this would be great for giving a rubric for any presentations. And you could sit in the back of the class with a laptop or a tablet and you can go through here. And I also want to say that this is also something, I have this designed specifically for me to use, but I can also distribute this to my students, and I can have them kind of go through with this rubric and grade their own papers, and I can compare the two results and decide whether we're seeing eye to eye. And then I can type in this some comments. Great work here. I'm impressed with how well you defend your thesis. Still need to work on that introduction. And I can type in more comments. So I'm just going to click submit. And then if I'm done, I can click out fill out form again. It'll take me right back to it, and I'm ready to grade my next paper. Okay, now I'll go over to the spreadsheet, the results of that form, and you'll see that right here is
how are you sending that form to your students?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't have the guts to do that yet. Because that actually will show the final grade, and maybe somewhere down the line I'll have a classroom that's so open and so transparent that I'm comfortable doing that. But I haven't done that yet. But what I do is I send...
Do you embed the form, or do you email the form to your students just so that they can fill out the assessment or the essay rubric?
Yeah. I said earlier that you can actually send that to your students so they can evaluate their own paper, and that's a great thing to do. But what I do right now is I can highlight this text. And let me first before I send it out to my students, I need to grade it. And what I've done ahead of time is I've created a formula that adds up all of these. And you saw that they were all graded from 1 to 5. and I've created 20 different fields, and so when you add all that up, that adds up to 100. And so if they got 5s on all of those, they would get 100 on this. And so I've created a formula, and what I need to do, and this is a little trick, when you submit a Google form, the field, for some reason or another, it does delete any pre-existing formula, but all you have to do to bring that formula back is go to a previous form, and you just command drag it down, and you'll see that it'll calculate, and Mr. Rogers here got an 84 on his paper. Not too bad. Now, I want to give this information to my students, and so what I can do is I can actually print out this form and cut strips of paper, and that's what I'm still doing that, and down the line what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to highlight this, and I can just hit copy the text and go back to the essay, and at the bottom I can, let's see, come on, I can just paste all that information in at the bottom. Let's see, let's try this one. And so there's the information with the comments, and I've given my students a key to what each of these numbers means, and there's the final grade right there. Now, if one thing that I'm going through right now, and I highly recommend that you all do it as well, there's a webinar on JavaScript for educators, and my friends Wendy and Rachel are leading that. There was part 1, part 2, and there's more coming. And what they will teach me to do as I do more of my homework is how to create actually a script that will, if I add my student's email address to this field, I can run a script that will automatically email them all of my results. I'm not quite there yet in my JavaScript capabilities, but I'm trying to get close. And there are also pre-made templates and other scripts that allow you to do this. But until then, I'm happy to just copy and paste these into the documents themselves or give this to them. So before I move on, I want to give a chance for my students here to talk a little bit about their experience with Google Docs. So, Nils, you want to come over here? All right. So this is Nils. He's a sophomore, and he's not only a student, but he's also started his own web design business. So he's really into this technology. So, Nils, what do you think about Google Docs?
I think it's great that you can, I know a lot of the people who are doing, writing novels, as a project for our English class, they're using, the comment feature to have, multiple people, let them know what they think of their plot line and, what they think of, like, character profiles and things like that. And it's really helpful for a lot of us. It's a lot faster, interaction, and all of our stuff gets graded a lot faster, which is always a plus.
And I will add that this generation really does desire feedback as fast as possible. And I'm not the fastest grader in the world, but this does streamline the process and allows me to provide more and faster feedback to my students. Katie, you want to talk a little bit about your experience with Google Docs?
Well, as Nils said before, it does makes working together a lot easier because maybe you don't have time to all meet up at the same place, but you can all work from your individual computer at home, and it's all immediate, so you know exactly what other people are doing. It's very instant. And then you also don't have to worry about losing your homework, because if you put it up here, then you can just pick up a computer from the school, or if you bring your laptop and just bring it up, which is really fast and easy.
Great. Thanks, Katie. That last point is really good. I don't hear the I left my homework at home excuse or problem anymore, because they can't. Their homework's up in the cloud and accessible anywhere. Okay, Dana, how are we doing on questions? Do we have more questions to address?
Let's see. Do you have a template form for getting started with that grading? Did you show those Flubaroo tools?
I haven't yet shown Flubaroo.
Okay, so I did see a question about that. So maybe you could just quickly show Flubaroo and how that does the grading of an assessment as well, so that if people aren't able to code their own JavaScript, they could take advantage of that app script that somebody else already worked on.
Okay, great. Let me show you how Flubaroo works. I'm learning about it right now, and I've just been playing around with it, and it looks really promising. So Flubaroo works with forms. So I'm going to create a new form, and I'm going to make a super simple quiz. All right, so I'm going to call this vocab quiz. And let's see here. I'm going to bring up a vocab list that my students together worked on all at the same time. And this is, let me go back to Google.English Teachers. And this is a vocab list that was generated by my students of the God of Small Things. So I'm going to put in the definition in this form. A departure from what is normal, that's an aberration. And then I'm going to create a new question, pull it from this, abject, extremely bad, or unpleasant. And in the title, I'm going to put that definition, and they're going to write in the word when I submit this as a quiz. So then adequacy, and then add an item, and then text, and then click done. Okay, and then I can make 20 questions or whatever. I'm going to hit save. And now I'm going to email my students. I'm going to copy the location of this public form, copy the link address, and then I'm going to go. If there's any ways I can distribute this, I could put it on my page, or I could email it. I can embed it, but I'm just going to email it. Nils and Katie. So you guys are going to get this form, and I'm going to ask you guys to fill it out real quickly, okay? So check your email, it's coming. So if I go back to the form, and I'm going to go to the C responses in the spreadsheet, and my students are quickly answering their questions. Did you find the form? Okay, it's just going to take a second for them to fill that out. And what Flubaroo is it's a JavaScript that was, it's not officially a Google product, but I think some Google engineers or a Google engineer was involved in creating it. And it's a script that, you know what? Well, I'll show you the feature without. One thing that you might want to do when you're creating your quiz using Flubaroo is also ask for their email address, because what that does, Flubaroo also has an option that you can email your students their results. So those are coming in. Oh, there's one coming in. And what I'm going to do, there they are. Great. And I actually asked a couple of them to put in incorrect answers so that, and what I need to do is actually put in the correct answers, because I also need to put in an answer key. And so what I didn't do, because I was kind of in a rush creating this, is you want to place somewhere where you can put the name. And actually, I'm going to call that. I'm going to pretend that this question was actually my name, or is asking for my name, and then extremely bad. Oh boy, I hope I'm spelling this. Adequacy, right? Let me double check my spelling here. Just gonna copy. And this has you gotta put it right here. And then hit submit. Thanks, you're done. And so I go back to the spreadsheet. You'll see that this is mine, and we're actually going to just grade these two questions. And so I'm going to go to Tools, Script Gallery, type in Flubaroo, search, and then I'm going to install this. And it's going to take a couple seconds. to install. It's going to bring up a warning page saying that it's asking you to do it's asking me to give this script access to spreadsheet and email, so you have to click on authorize to do it. And it says now you can run the script. And then you can close this, and then now you have a new Flubaroo menu. And so you click on grade assignment, and so it's preparing to grade, and it takes you through a couple steps. So since I changed this one, I'm going to pretend that the first question was actually list your name, and I'm going to say it identifies the student. And then we're going to have 1 point for each additional question. And then I'm going to continue. And then please submit which submission should be used for the answer key, and I'm going to click Kevin as the one for the answer key. So it's going to check the other ones to see if that's correct. So now it's grading the assignment, view grades, and let's see how it works. Okay, so we see that the grades here are in this separate tab. So the reason that this didn't quite work the way I wanted it to, because they put in their both names. We have a couple minutes. Let me try this again and run through it. Actually, this repetition will help you all as well with the steps. So let's go to my docs list. I'm going to create a new form. To make this even simpler, math, and we'll say 5 plus 5. Oh wait, first we need to identify yourself. So I'm going to do name, required, done, and then I'll edit this one with email, required, done, add an item, text, 5 plus 5, add a new item, text, 7 minus 3, required. Now that I've had both the name and the email, I can identify it and we can see how this grade works. And so I'm going to right-click this link, copy the link address, and again send this to my students. This one will work better. I'm going to send that off, and they're going to quickly take this quiz. I also have to take it myself so I can make the answer key. So I'm going to go to the live form, and I'm going to take it while they're taking it. Kevin Perkauser@gmail.com. You're welcome to email me if you have any questions. 5 plus 5, 10. Look at this. It said 7 minus 3. It turned that into a date. But guys, pretend that says 7 minus 3. Okay. And put in 4 as the answer. We'll see what that happens. I guess it was auto-filled and thought that it was a date. That's a good lesson. Luckily, we English teachers won't run into that problem very often. And now we're going to go back to my docs list and home. Go to the math quiz, and we'll see if those got submitted. Have you guys submitted yet? Oh, they're just about to. Here, they're coming through. Oh, Nils. Yeah, 7 minus 3. You can put whatever answer you want in there. Okay, so then again, I'm going to go, here are the results. Now I want to grade, so again, I have to go to Tools, Script Gallery, Flubaroo, Search, Install, Wait, take just a second, and it's going to bring in that warning, authorize. Now you can run the script. And then just close, and then on Flubaroo, click Grade Assignment. Step 1 could not be found. There must be an issue here. But anyway, you get a sense of, I think the fact that it auto-converted this question into a date might have messed something up. Dana, do you have any thoughts?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I'm just not, there was some error, but I think what happened was I typed in the question 7 minus 3, and it automatically read that as a date instead of...
Oh, right. If you click at the very top of that column where it says that, yeah, and go under, where it says the 1, 2, 3, kind of in the little toolbar.
Oh, yeah. Just turn that in.
And then you go down and select plain text at the bottom. Or, yeah, and then now you should be able to type 7-3. Oh, yeah, actually, I don't think you selected plain text from that.
Plain text, okay. So, 1, 2, 3, plain text.
Yeah. I don't think you, yeah, so you have to do it one more time.
I have to do it again?
You have that cell selected. Yeah, so then now go to the 1, 2, 3 and hit plain text. It'll come up with kind of something else, usually. Or now try 7 minus 3.
7 minus 3. Nice.
There we go.
Okay, let's try running this script and see if it works this time. Grade step 1 could not be found. Well, it works. There's something funny going on right now, but you can get a sense of just the steps to go through, and I invite you to go to Falugaroo.com, and it shows you the detailed steps. But it does grade those assignments based on the answers that you submit as your answer key, and it is another time saver. Another feature that you can do is you can create conditional formatting in each column, and you could in that data, it's something that you could Google and how to conditional format. Basically, you could make it so that if the cell in any single column is the correct word, you can have that color be green. So that's just an idea that you might want to explore further. So I see that my time is...
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Kevin, there was a question if you had any of these examples on a site or the Macbeth grading example they like seeing, if it's possible for you to maybe just put all the links together or something, and then I can share that out along with your agenda.
Absolutely. I'll put all those in my agenda, and then we'll share that.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you, Kevin and students, for joining for the webinar today. And for everybody who joined, thank you for joining this webinar. I'll send you a link to the recording of this webinar as well as Kevin's agenda and any of the question and answers that came through.
Great. Thank you.